We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Hilchot Shabbat, the halachot of Kiddush. We're at the end of Siman Rosh Ayin Bit, the halachot of what wines are kasher and what wines are not, and what does it cover, what does it not cover. So Seif Yud Maran writes, and this is in Daf Nun Aleph Amud Bet, in regular prints of your Mishna Beruras, Birkat Yain Shel Kiddush Poteret Yain Shebetoch HaSeudah. The bracha that you say on Kiddush prior to Seudah, of course, is before you wash to start the Seudah. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot, in the 7th Perek, the Gemara says that it covers the wine that you have inside the Seudah as well. Ve'enot ta'un bracha le'acharav. And it doesn't need bracha at the end of it. The Birkat Hamazon potarto, because Birkat Hamazon, even though that you haven't started Seudah yet, you're drinking the wine prior to starting Hamotzi, to starting Seudah, but nevertheless, the bracha acharona is covered with the bracha acharona on the meal, which is Birkat Hamazon. Now we'll see that that's less than simple. The Birkat Hamazon potarto ben shehu ala kos, ben sheinu ala kos. Whether you say benching on a cup of wine, or whether you're not saying benching on a cup of wine, as we'll see the details of in later Simanim, it will cover the benching, will cover the bracha of me'en shalosh that you would need to say on the kos kiddush, the cup of wine, prior to hamotzi. Says the Mishna Berura, the kevan shu b'mkom ha'seudah sorche seudahu u'mechamatahu ba. Why is it covering the cup of wine inside your meal in duration of the meal? Because it's sorche seudah. It is in the place that you eat seudah. It is part of the seudah because you need to say kiddush on Shabbat and Yom Tov. So therefore, since the kiddush is coming because of the seudah, the bracha that you say is covering anything that is also within the seudah. So if you have another cup of wine during seudah, that's covered with the kiddush as well. Now, another important anecdote over here is that if you drink, even if you didn't say the kiddush yourself, you listened to kiddush and you drank a little bit from the wine of kiddush, then the bracha fori priya gefen that the Mekadesh said covers you as well. And now, because wine is the king of all of the drinks, is considered the most important drink of all, it covers the bracha of shahakol that you would need to say for any other drink during Seudah as well. Now, why is this important? It's important because, as we will see, well, we have seen already parts of this in Siman Rashbet, earlier on in Chot Brachot, that in duration of Seudah, there is a machloket whether or not a person should say shahakol on drinks that they have. In other words, it's debatable if the bracha of hamotzi covers only food items or also drinks. Now, because we have doubt, if you have a scenario in which you said hamotzi, and now you want to drink a cup of water or a juice or Coke, you don't say bracha because safek brachot dakel, because when you have doubt, you do without. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a safek. In fact, the Mishna Berura says a person that's careful in their halachic actions, what they should do prior to washing for hamotzi is take a cup of water, sit down where you're going to be eating, say shakol, have a little sip of water, less than kazayit, and now you have gotten yourself out of that machloket. Now, when you say kiddush, that's amazing, because provided that you drink a little sip of the wine, even if you're not the person who says the kiddush, And that's the reason, by the way, that people make sure to have a little sip from the Kiddush, aside from the fact that it gives you chibuk mitzvah, you're showing your love for the mitzvah, it also provides you with this element that now that you drank, the bracha of the geffen that he said is covered for me as well. So it's like, prior to Seudah, I said ha-geffen, which covers all the mashkim. So now that I want to have some juice, some water during the Seudah, I'm covered, even mimidat chasidut. So that also is something to be concerned about. Lechatchila, the person should be drinking a little bit of the wine, a little te'ima of the wine, in order to get around that machloket. Now, a little bit, the Berura Halacha says that you need to at least have melo lugmav, to have at least a cheekful of the wine, but we don't necessarily paskin like that. Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul, in Perek Chavtet, I believe, of the Or Letzion, he says that mashu is enough. Mashu of wine that you drink, sorry, this is in Perek Chaf, mashu of drink is sufficient to have been yotzeh, and now you could drink different mashkim in the course of your Seudah without being concerned for this. Now, if you don't have this, by the way, on Shabbat for sure, but even during the course of regular week, for instance, you didn't say bracha on water before, what do you do? So l'chatchila, you should say a little sha'akol and a piece of something that's sha'akol, a candy, and cover the sha'akol in that way, to get yourself out of the machloket. But again, in lieu of that, safek brachot la'akel, and we don't say bracha while drinking in the course of Seudah, in duration of Seudah. Now, we mentioned before, we could bring it here again, that based on the Shiara Knesset Gedolah, Reb Chaim Ben Beneshti, the mitz anavim that we have nowadays, the grape juice that we have nowadays, because the yeast has been neutralized and killed, whether by cooking process or by adding chemicals that nullify and kill the yeast, and the grape juice could never turn into wine now. So the Knesset Gedolah holds that this is not wine. It's not wine, and you can't say kiddush on it. Rabbi Elyashiv actually paskins like this. There's actually a Sephardi Rav Yitzchak Darzi, who wrote a series of Sfarim, Shvud Yitzchak, and he was very close with Rabbi Elyashiv. He used to go to him. He's one of the most reliable people when he quotes Rabbi Elyashiv's shitas, because he actually handled with it. He was holding in the sugyas, and he brings this in the name of Rabbi Elyashiv as well. But Lamase, the minhag is certainly not like that. People deal with regular grape juice as wine. They say berpregefen on it, and it covers all the drinks in your Seudah as well. Now, the Ben Ish Chai writes, this that we say you don't need to say bracha after it, the Shulchan Aruch said. That means when you have a kos shel kiddush, when you have a cup of wine, and you drink, you don't need bracha afterwards because the Amazon covers it, right? So we'll get to the Berura Halacha. Berura Halacha tries to show that this is actually not so simple. It's machloket, and therefore it says, well, what you could get along with, don't have revi'it. Sufficient to have melo lugmav, sufficient to have rov revi'it. So if you have 45 grams of cc's of wine, you're good to go, basically. So have less than revi'it. This way you don't get into this machloket whether or not you need kavanah in the benching for this wine, whether it covers it or not. But then he says, well, you're not out of machloket anyways, because there are many Rishonim, and people don't realize this, but there are many Rishonim who hold that even by drinks, having a kazayit already is mechayev a bracha acharona. So if you hold that, so then for sure you're not out of all machloket. So says the Berura Halacha, at the end of the day, you should have kavanah when you say benching, when you say Birkat Hamazon, you should have in mind that your Birkat Hamazon should cover the bracha acharona and the kiddush, the wine of the kiddush that you drank. Now, the Ben Ish Chai has a whole different story over here. The Ben Ish Chai in Rapa'alim writes in Chelek Bet, Siman Mem Zayim, he understands, and this becomes a big machloket between the Ben Ish Chai and pretty much anyone else, the Mishna Berura, the Chacham Obadia, and so on. The Ben Ish Chai holds that if you eat something before Seudah, you're chayav to say Bracha Acharona, even though that you are about to start Seudah. Now, we generally speaking say that you should not be putting yourself in that situation, because as a fair machloket Rishonim and Achronim, whether or not a person says Bracha Acharona in that scenario, because you're just going to start Seudah, and then you're going to say Birkat Hamazon, which may cover the Bracha Acharona of what you just ate. So therefore, don't say Bracha Acharona, says Chacham Obadia, because Safek Brachot La'akel. You're about to start the Seudah, and you know you're going to be saying Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon, and you know that Birkat Hamazon perhaps covers the Bracha Acharona that you just need to say, so therefore don't say it. So what's the halacha? Well, this is again both according to Chacham Obadia, the Chafetz Chaim in Mishna Berura comes out the same way, that a person should not be eating a kazait of food prior to starting Seudah, not to get into this machloket. If you got into the machloket, you know, Safek Brachot La'akel, you don't say the bracha, but don't get yourself in. That's why when you have Karpas and Leil Pesach, everyone makes sure to tell you, have less than kazait. Why? Because you don't want to get into this machloket, right? Or the minhag that some of the Sephardim have, that they sit after Kiddush before Hamotzi, and they have different fruits, vegetables, and side dishes like halva and kuku and so on and so forth. That's not necessarily a halachically advised minhag, because even if you are trying to be marbeh bebrachot on Shabbat, you have to be mindful that I can't have a subtotal of kazait, like, you know, if half a kazait of apple, a half a kazait of cucumber is mistaref to a kazait. So you have to be also mindful of that. So it becomes very difficult to be careful sitting there having a little tiny bit of every little thing. So therefore, it's not necessarily a halachically advised behavior, because it gets you into this situation. But now, Ari HaKadosh, the Marchu, his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, alav Shalom, writes that one day he was meeting with Arizal. He comes to Ari HaKadosh. Arizal takes a look at his forehead and said, you drank water before Seudah and you didn't say nefashot, which was absolutely correct. Arizal could see things that other people could not see, and it's scary because every action, every thought, every speech that you do, it makes an impact on a person, so much so that the person who has eyes to see could see it on you. It's on a person, you know. So he chastised him and said he should have said bracha achrona. So says the Ben Ish Chai, you see from here, the Arizal held that if you eat or drink before Seudah, you have to say bracha achrona, and don't rely on Birkat Hamazon. Safek brachot. So Ben Ish Chai says we don't say Safek brachot la'akel neged Arizal. We do say it neged Maran, but Arizal is even bigger. We don't have any Safek. Arizal is as if Hashem came down and said it to you himself. So it's direct, as there's no Safek. This becomes one of those major points of contention and machloket between the Mekubalim, Poskei Mekubalim and Poskei Pashtanim. Chacham Obadia, of course, does not reckon with that in that way at all. He holds that Arizal was a tremendous personality of Torah, tremendous Mekubal, tremendous tzaddik. But when it comes to halacha, we don't reckon with him any differently than one of the regular Achronim that lived 500 years ago. And therefore, we deal with it as Safek and Safek Brachot La'akel. We don't reckon with anything more than that when talking about Ari HaKadosh. So, having stated that, the Ben Ish Chai in Rab Pa'alim in Chelek Bet in that Shuvah, he writes that the person should be careful, right? That if you have to drink after Kiddush before Seudah, you should be careful not to drink a Rvi'it, because if you do drink, you get yourself into this Safek. The only difference is, everyone agrees that you shouldn't do it. But if you did do it, then there's machloket. Ben Ish Chai says, if you did do it, you have to say bracha achrona. Because of this story of Arizal. Haradi says, absolutely not, right? Because Safek bracha lakel, and if you say a bracha that's unnecessary, according to Shita of Rambam and Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Resh Levav, you will be in transgression of Lo Tisat Shem Hashem Elokecha Lashav. It's Isur Doraita, not the Rabbanan. The Ramah holds it's Isur Rabbanan, saying an unnecessary bracha. Maran Shulchan Aruch holds saying an unnecessary bracha is a full-fledged transgression of a Doraita, the third of the Aseret that he brought. Lo Tisat Shem Hashem Elokecha Lashav. So therefore you have to be careful and mindful of that as well, right? Now, this is not just the Ben Ish Chai or the Tzion, Kaf HaChaim, every one of them goes with that, but again, on the other hand, you have the Chazal Obadia, and Halichot Olam, Yabia Omer, Chacham Obadia in multiple places disagrees with this very vehemently, that we go follow the Achronim, that we say Safak Brachot Lakel, just like the Pesach of the Mishna Berura, and therefore, obviously you should not put yourself in this situation, but if you find yourself in that situation, says Chacham Obadia, says the Mishna Berura, says Ramashash in Shemesh Magen, and a long list of Achronim that a person would not say Bracha Acharona. Fine, so that's the basic gist of this this part of the Mishna Berura. Chofetz Chaim continues, the Birkat Hamazon Putarto, the kos shel Kiddush gam ken bichlal dvarim habayim machmat Seudah, because the cup of Kiddush is something that's part and parcel of the Seudah, and hence the Birkat Hamazon after Seudah covers it, and you don't have to be concerned about it. Now, in Biur Halacha, earlier on, this is in almost 100 simanim ago, right? In Siman Kuf Ayin Dalit, right? We're doing Resh Ayin Bet now. In Kuf Ayin Dalit, the Biur Halacha says what we just said right now, that even according to some Rishonim, even kazait of drink is a problem. So therefore, you should anyways have kavanah to be yotzeh with the Birkat Hamazon, because there's no other etzah, a good etzah to deal with. But again, the Ben Ish Chai says that it's a mitzvah to drink from the wine of Kiddush and have a Revi'it. So Ben Ish Chai says, what's the problem? Have a Revi'it of the wine, and you don't have to be concerned about this whole safek that the Mishna Berura brings, and the or Letzion Shaul says that even the Mishna Berura himself revoked his psak and retracted it, in later places. Therefore, you could be feeling comfortable to drink a full revi'it. Again, that stays as a safek, is not really a simple a simple halacha, because again, even though that the Chofetz Chaim in Chod Pesach in Siman Taf Ayin Bet, when he talks about the arba kosot of the cups, the 4 cups of wine that the person is ought to have Leil Pesach, he says that you should have lechatchila the entire cup that's revi'it. Lechatchila you should have the entire cup, says the Chofetz Chaim. So the Or Etzion sees from there that he retracted his psak, but nevertheless others understand that this is not a stira necessarily. This is something specific about the arba kosot of Leil Pesach for different reasons, but nevertheless, Chacham Ovadia, as we mentioned before, paskins that the Shulchan Aruch is Ikar, and even though that you say you drank a Ra'v-י, you don't have to be concerned about the bracha. It's covered with the bracha of Birkat Hamazon, and that's the minhag of many. So Letzion paskins like that, Chacham Ovadia paskins like that. And on the other hand, you have the Mishna Berura that says, look, try to have just a milul lugmav and stay away from having a full Ra'v-y. That concludes our Siman Resh Ayin Bet, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we're excited to start the halachot of Kiddush b'makom Seuda, which is extremely important area of halacha, perhaps the most relevant and important Siman in Halachot Kiddush, which Be'ezrat Hashem will continue in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.